Welcome back to the Mandarin Blueprint podcast, everyone. I have a special guest with us today, Chad Erickson. He is also a Mandarin Blueprint member, and I'd just like to chat with him today and see what his thoughts are. So, Chad, why don't you introduce yourself for everyone?
Yeah, my name's Chad Erickson. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, in the U.S., and found Mandarin Blueprint a few months ago, and been loving it ever since. I used to live in China and started studying when I lived out there. So
Chengdu,
been
actually,
interested
which is
in
where
learning.
Phil and I were for many years.
Yep. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a cool place. I love Sichuan. And unfortunately had to move back to the U.S. Due to some like health issues, but been studying ever since, and kind of happy I found Mandarin Blueprint.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, China's great for a lot of things, but when it comes to health, medicine, that sort of thing, get back to the US. Good idea.
Yeah,
Tell me
exactly.
about your
Yeah,
journey. Tell me about your journey a little bit more. How did you come to find us, and what were you doing in China? Why did you want to learn Chinese?
yeah. So graduated college in 2017, and didn't really want to pursue what I had studied for with my major. So thought I'd do something little interesting and go to China and taught English for 7 months. Didn't really know anything about Chengdu or Sichuan. They just kind of said you're going to Chengdu, so uh, packed the bags and moved out there, and it was a great time. Like I loved China. Just the coming from the U.S., just the newness of everything.
Mm.
Just every day was exciting. So I made learning Chinese kind of my main goal when I was out there, and got a tutor and everything, and was immersed in the culture. Really try to hang out with local Chinese people as opposed to doing the kind of like standard English teaching thing where you just hang out with other English teachers.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a good time. Moved back to the U.S. in 2018, and just been doing self study ever since. And was kind of in this rut, this loop of learning something for going super hard for 2 months or so, and then falling back on my studies, and then having to go back and relearn everything. So it was a frustrating 2 years that I was in with Chinese, and I was really looking for a method um, that I can implement that would be more efficient. I had read books like uh, Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer, and a lot of this like memory Olympic stuff, memory tricks and stuff like that. So I was aware of all of that, and I knew I needed to kind of implement those techniques into my Chinese, but I didn't know how to like where to start. I was trying to like create something myself a little bit, but kind of knew how much work it would take. So yeah, then I think I just found you guys on a related video on YouTube. I was looking up Chinese stuff, and I think it was a video of you, Luke, and yeah, found you guys like in February this year, 2021, and been going hard ever since.
Yeah, it must be because it's only been what, February, March, April, May. Yeah, 3-ish months. Is that right?
Yeah,
3-ish
about three
months.
months.
And how far are you throughout the
Yes,
course
sir.
now? Whereabouts are you? What level?
So I'm level 18. I just finished up level 17. It's all like it's real fun right now because it's all stuff, all the words I've seen before and I've learned at some point. But I've had to like relearn them over the past 2 years, going in this loop of forgetting just by doing the rote memorization stuff. So it's been really fun just being able to go through and create some cool movies and stories with stuff that I'm already vaguely familiar with, and have seen in context a little bit. So yeah, I'm having a great time so far. It's been
Great.
great.
Good to hear. I'm really curious because
Yeah.
it sounds like you've got a very similar path to me, and of course Phil as well, but me especially because I remember I did that exact same thing. really
Mhm.
dedicated to learning and really earnestly wanted to become part of the culture and experience it, and uh, willing to put in a lot of time and effort, which of course you are as well. And I would also go through these stretches. Like, tell me more about that. Like these, what did you don't have to be specific with what you use, but you can like products, but you can if you don't want to, but you can tell me about like
Yeah.
that journey, that's when you were during the struggle part. Tell me about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the resources I was using during this struggle part was the Mrs. Zhang's teaches characters. You know that
Mm.
book? It's
No,
like
I don't
there's like a
actually.
part
I
A.
know I've heard pretty much all of them. I thought I knew all of them, but no, I haven't heard that one.
I think I saw a video where you brought it up.
Oh, really?
Maybe I'm mistaken.
Maybe I forgot.
Yeah, but it's like a character book, and it kind of goes through like the history of where some of the characters came from, and then just the regular HSK books. So I was stuck on HSK 2
Mm.
just for like 2 years, where I would do 3 or 4 chapters, and then learn all these characters, and then I would slack off for 2 weeks, 2 3 weeks, and then come back and not remember anything. And it was so frustrating, and
What do you think caused you to stop
not
though?
having,
Like, what do you think? What was the thing that said, forget it, and slack off for 2 weeks?
yeah, it just became non-priority,
Right.
between work and other stuff I'm going on, living in America. Learning Chinese wasn't an immediate priority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though it's always been something I've taken very seriously and wanted to learn.
Mm.
Um, I think just the lack of structure and the lack of consistent input, and
Yeah.
like I'm the kind of guy, I need a good system to follow. I kind of create systems for everything I do in my life, and I knew I needed one for learning Chinese, and I didn't have one, so I just said like, oh, screw it, and just lose interest, and then come back 3 weeks and be like, I want to do this, but yeah, um, yeah, it was frustrating. I'm sure. Did you experience something similar?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. And these certain things that I would use, I get really excited about at first, and they were effective on some level, but they would either eventually I'd end up being shown stuff that I couldn't really understand. I had no basis for consuming, like you said, not comprehensible, and or it was just a ton of content, some of which was useful, some of which wasn't, and I didn't know what to do with it, and or I
Yeah,
would feel like I'm progressing, but then after, like about the same time, or maybe a few weeks or a couple of months, I'd be like, am I actually progressing, or am I just clicking through lessons? Am I just finishing textbook chapters? I feel like I'm progressing
yeah.
only because I'm ticking certain boxes, and but am I actually acquiring the language? And most of the time the answer was actually no, not really.
Hmm.
And it's just that
Yeah.
idea of like, I don't really have that much time every day, and maybe an hour, two,
Hmm.
sometimes three. But so I want that hour or two to count. And I think,
Exactly.
yeah, and so after a while of thinking maybe this hour or two doesn't actually count, or I can't, there's no tangible way of knowing, then I'm just going to move on to something else. And I like to think that
Hmm.
that's something that we offer with Mandarin Blueprint. It's like, it's not just ticking boxes. It requires real work from you, real
Hmm.
time, real energy. You do the work, but we just guide you through each step and say, okay, now you've done that. You've unlocked this. You've learned this character that unlocks these
Hmm.
two words that are really common, and here they are in context. And you're like, oh, okay, that's tangible. I can see that, and I feel like I've started to acquire these things. Anyway, that's what we've been trying to do. Is to sort of,
Yeah.
that's the main. Actually, what you're hitting on is the main problem we're trying to solve, I think, of just being lost and confused. Have an actual
Yeah. No,
structure.
I think you guys are killing it, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's exactly what I needed. As I mentioned, I was like considering creating something similar. By no means did I make any good progress on it, but I was just thinking like, how do I incorporate all these things I've learned with memory to making studying Chinese more efficient? Because as you mentioned, like, yeah, I got maybe 1 to 2 hours a day tops, and I don't want to spend the first hour having to review stuff that I knew I should already know. and also with like the comprehensible input stuff that you mentioned. I was having a really hard time finding applicable comprehensible input, and the amount of stuff of resources that you guys provide, between just the videos, the in lesson stuff, and then the audio files. I just whenever I'm driving, I throw on those audio files, and sometimes I'm consciously like trying to like translate it in real time. Other times, just keep it on low volume, just let it run in the background, and it helps so much. Like I underestimated the value of just hearing that stuff, being immersed all
Tell
the
me more about
time.
that, because that's quite a slow process. It's something that involves consistent practice, and it's tough with subconscious acquisition, which is what comprehensible learning is creating for you when you're listening every day, because you can't, again, that's the disadvantage. That's the one advantage of that type of learning I was talking about earlier, that you can just tick those boxes and feel like you've accomplished something. But with, even though you haven't really, you can feel like you have. But it's the opposite with the way we're doing it, the way you're doing it, where you're just listening, you're just listening, you're just looking, and you have to rely on those moments where you're like, oh, I just said something I couldn't say before, and like it's very sporadic, and it's very it's intangible. Let's put it that way, right? So like,
Yeah.
So how are you measuring that? Like, how are you measuring that it's working for you? Is what I guess I'm curious about.
So I have a handful of friends that I stay in contact with, Chinese friends that I met in China. So we're always chatting. Their English has always been better than mine. But the past few months, I've really stepped up the conversation, mainly in text, like over WeChat and Facebook and stuff. So I've really stepped up the conversation with using Chinese, just, like asking how they're doing, like taking the conversation a little bit further. Whereas, the past 2 years, like I would say one sentence in Chinese and then get real nervous because I didn't know what to say next. So that's been getting a lot better. They've mentioned like, oh, I can tell you've been practicing. I started, per your guys' request or recommendation, I started reading those Mandarin companion books. So I think I just finished my third one right now. I'm loving those. I just read those at night. Like it's like a child story, but I love being able to just like forget that I'm actually reading Chinese, and I'm just engrossed in the story. And I'm picturing myself, where they are at in the story, and then I forget. I'm like, oh, I'm like reading Chinese right now. So yeah, it's so much fun.
Do you read normally, or is that something a habit that you've lost, like me? Just generally reading in
Like
English, or
reading. I try to read a lot. I try to do 1 to 2 books a month. So I try to stay on it.
Because I used to love reading, and somewhere along the way, ironically, probably during university, I just stopped the habit of reading. And I used to be obsessed with reading as a kid. I used to get those Goosebumps books. I used to
I love
beg my
those.
mum to
R.L.
buy me a
Stein.
Goosebumps book, and I used to read a
Yeah.
Goosebumps book, no kidding, in 3 or 4 hours. I would just from cover to cover.
Yeah.
And
That's so funny. I would do the same thing.
yeah, right. As
Yeah.
it's coincidence, but and I just somewhere along the way I just stopped doing it. But Chinese has given. I've started reading again because of Chinese and enjoying exactly the feeling you described. I'd often
And for you, are you
stuff.
reading?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, sorry to cut you off. Are you reading? You're interested in reading Chinese text or just like any text? Like you're reading more in general now?
I got a kid now, and I'm gonna and probably having more kids at some point in the future. So like my reading time is severely diminished anyway. But when I do read, I read a little bit of native stuff. But mainly, I'm just my goal is to get through all of the Game of Thrones in Chinese, which is I
Oh,
know it's not
nice.
a traditional way of doing. I try to consume native content as well because it's just not quite the same. Like reading a
Yeah.
translated novel, there's a lot of things that don't translate and all that sort of stuff. So I'm reading like Chen Ai Luo Ding, which is like a Chinese one. I can send you that. But that's fantastic as well. But yeah,
Cool.
I tried to read, but yeah, I literally like 10 minutes when I'm about to pass out in the evening. I try and
Yeah.
make it 20, 30 minutes a day at least. But
Mhm.
that's about where I am with that. But
Yeah. And I guess, do you, are your kids of like reading age yet? Do you read to them?
no, no, no. Well, I do read well, he can't read on his own yet. He's only one. But yeah, of course, I read to him
Mm,
every night in Chinese as well, Chinese and English,
nice.
like bilingual books and stuff. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to read him some proper books. Like I can't wait to read him like The
Yeah.
Dark is Rising or something like that in Chinese. That'd be so
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's
I
what
think I heard you on a,
mm.
on a podcast talk about how annoying the Game of Thrones is with like all the names that are like translated. Because like
Yeah,
that's something that
that's just a
I
personal
find
thing. That
annoying.
can be tough, you know. I have to
Yeah.
like look up all the names and see who they're talking about because I have no idea. Sometimes I don't
Yeah.
bother. So it's some knight. He's not important. I know I've got a feeling he's not that important, so I'm not going to bother because I'm lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a small thing,
It's
and
funny.
it's maybe just me, you know.
Hmm.
But that is definitely a disadvantage of reading translated novels as well. Um,
Hmm.
so what are you looking forward to? Obviously, you're already experiencing the good side of being able to read and listen in Chinese. Or what are you looking forward to down the line? What's your goal? Your main or one of your main goals
Um,
in Chinese?
yeah, one of the main goals, one of them is to read a proper novel in Chinese. I've picked when I was in China, I picked up a couple like kids books, and I was under the impression they would be easy, but they're actually pretty difficult. And
Surprisingly
like
tough,
on the
yeah.
first page,
Hmm.
yeah, on the first page, there's probably half the words I didn't know, so I just put it down and didn't bother again. So yeah, I'd really love to like read a novel eventually. Um, the the prospect of doing business um, in China or using Chinese as an asset in the workforce, that's always in the back of my mind as well. Nothing specific, but just
Hmm.
I figure it's a great skill to have. Yeah, that's I'm trying to keep it just fun right now and not too worried about like what am I gonna do with this. I just know there's a like 1.3 billion Chinese Mandarin speakers and
Hmm.
all over the world, all over Asia. Mandarin's a powerful language, so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just looking forward to being able to communicate with more people in the world. I think that's a big thing for me.
Yeah. I should point out 1.3 billion Mandarin Chinese understanders, but like like
Oh
a
yeah,
surprisingly large amount can't like speak it that well. But
true. Yeah.
definitely they'll be able to not standard, but they'll be able to speak in a way that you'll be able to understand. That was a bit of a shock to me,
Mm-hmm.
like how many people just cannot speak standard Mandarin. Even yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Yunnan, right? There was a guy coming in to replace a couple of tiles or something, and I was just like, I can't quite understand what this guy's saying, and it's really frustrating. I've been here for 8 years, and he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't speak Mandarin, you know. But it's all good. We got there
Did
in the end, but it was a little bit of a struggle, but we got there in the end, you know. Those
dang.
moments always like send me back to when I first came here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't
Yeah.
don't get worried though. It's a minority, of course, but yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
probably less than a billion at this point. But yeah, for sure, that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people.
I'm curious. I'm curious. Is it more? Is Mandarin use less prevalent in Yunnan compared to Sichuan?
No, it's not particularly. I don't think. It's just. I guess it's like whenever you're in a place that's less developed, with less big cities,
Mm-hmm.
then it's more rural, as you could describe it. Like basically, somewhere that's not like Sichuan, for example, has like massive cities like Chengdu and Chongqing and
Yeah.
stuff, and yeah. But most people, or everyone understands Mandarin. Most people speak it just in general, but the accents are certainly heavier in certain places that are less developed, and Yunnan is one of those places that I guess you could say is less developed. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Um, there was a couple of other questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think I'm really curious about just getting to some specifics about the course. Your impressions
Yeah.
of the course so far. You're level 17, did you say? So
Yeah, a
you're
lot
on
of
the
stuff changed.
point where you're consuming, you're reading long form content, understanding it. Um, what is it? And there anything sort of specific parts about the curriculum that you can say have been particularly helpful or impactful for you?
Hmm. Um, Definitely the audio files at the end of each level that I'm able to download. I've been listening to those all day.
That's like a brand new thing.
The
What the new ones that we released, yeah, the other day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm glad those are helpful.
I regularly comb through the comments for a little inspiration for finding props and stuff. So I really love how easy that is. Like just you just scroll down and there's usually five or so comments with some pretty good ideas, and I'll
Yeah.
usually use that to like start out my brainstorming process. Um, yeah, and then just like the super, I can tell you guys put in good work with the super specific and applicable sentence examples that you use for those words.
Mm.
Um, I'll like just compare like the HSK books and stuff that I've combed through over the years. It seems so like just like bureaucratic and
I know.
not actually applicable. And it's yeah,
Yeah.
you guys just have a good balance of like pushing our skills. Like we're kind of in that challenge zone where we're being challenged a little bit, but everything is digestible and it's feasible. So yeah, I can just tell you guys put in some good time with that. I always appreciate that kind of stuff.
Thanks, man.
Um, yeah, yeah, and then yeah, then just like the Anki cards, like I can tell that that would take a lot of time because I'm kind of a nerd with all that kind of stuff, and
Mm.
but it's just super helpful that everything comes pre-tagged. I love that, like that. You just throw in an Anki and
Phil will be
it's ready to
happy
go.
that
So
someone
that's super cool.
appreciates that. Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, yeah. It's his, he does all most of these sort of flashcard organization stuff like that. Um,
Okay.
and tagging everything in that way was his sort of innovation there. So um,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously it took a lot of time. So I think he'll be very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell.
Was there anything where you were like challenged too much, where you're like, whoa, but then sort of figured it out, overcame the challenge?
Um, not really, but I'm just because everything as I mentioned is kind of familiar to me still. All the words are, and the whole idea of the movie method, like I've been into memory palaces for the past few years, like
Yeah.
doing that with like numbers and other useless crap. So like I wasn't like, what is it? What is this? I don't understand. While we're making a movie, I just want to learn Chinese. Like I
Right.
understood it from the beginning.
How long does it
Yeah,
take you
so
to learn a
it's
movie these
everything's.
days?
Uh, I say 30 seconds to a minute. I can pop one out. I started out like writing them out.
Mm.
Like writing down all the props needed, all the actors, the set, and all that kind of stuff, just to like um, kind of train my brain to start thinking that way. Yeah,
Mm.
and now I just do it all in my head, which is real fun.
Yeah, that
What
is
about
cool
you?
actually. I remember doing it as like without any platform or book or anything like that. When I sort of mastered the method and I was still learning, I'd drive past, like in a taxi or something, drive past a sign with a character I didn't know, and I'd like do that. I'd pretend I was like what's his name, Zach Galifianakis from the Hangover, like numbers going around me,
Oh yeah,
learn that
yeah,
character. Okay, learned next.
yeah.
That was fun.
Nice. Yeah.
So jumping into
Wait,
the,
another.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I remembered you asked me like how I've been measuring my success.
Mm.
Another cool little checkpoint milestone, whatever you want to call it. I started like thinking in Chinese.
Oh,
So I
cool.
like I, I I train people. I'm a personal trainer, so I was training a client, and I I noticed that I would like kind of say some things
Mm.
how you would translate it in Chinese, which it would come across as
Is
like
what?
super
Yeah,
like
I
yeah
do that
like
sometimes. I
terse and
go, I
just
go. This is what
blunt.
instead of this. What is this? And then this is something. Something is
Yeah.
what. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so I noticed I started doing that a lot more often, which is kind
Mm.
of fun. And I sometimes I like speak English. I'll say it just to have fun with it. But yeah, that was kind of a fun checkpoint.
Thinking in Chinese is actually a really cool idea for figuring out gaps. So you know, kind of narrating your life, or you're just translating your own thoughts in Chinese. And because you'll often find, I still find that when I wanted to say something, a feeling that I have, which is usually a feeling in English, right, and I want to translate it and say it in Chinese, or I want to observe something, comment or something, I thought, oh, I couldn't quite do that, or I couldn't quite do it straight away, or I can do it, but I'm not sure if that's actually the way to do it. And you can
Yeah.
write that down, and talk to your tutor about it, or figure it out yourself using using us if you like, or using a high native, or other resources out there. So it's a nice habit to have, genuinely.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of do something similar. I don't do it as often as I should. I'll just like journal in Chinese, like typing. So I'll journal in a way that I'm trying to express just feelings and what I'm excited for in the day. And I don't do it as much as I often because it's kind of it's so uncomfortable. You're trying to think and express something and you can't say it. So, but yeah, I find that like super, super helpful.
Yeah, making that, yeah, like doing it in a maybe a more public way might help, like actual social media, whether it's if you can get access to WeChat or something like that,
Hmm.
or some other sort of Chinese social media like Weibo or whatever.
Hmm.
Making it more of, or just a blog, and anyone can. I think you can get like loads of free. You can just make a free blog, can't you? Just do it in Chinese,
Yeah.
and make it like a daily thing. And if you don't know how to say something, just look up, try and figure out one of the words that would help you get that point across, and look up some example sentences, and then just sort of copy the example sentences until you think you've got it, until you're pretty much 100% this is at least grammatically correct, and just sort of
Mm.
compromise, meet in the middle between your real thoughts and the what the example sentences you find provide, and express a
Yeah.
thought somewhere in between, until you sort
Hmm.
of, and you gradually work your way towards being able to just purely express it and accurately.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something you can maybe
Yeah.
try out.
Yeah. I've been using this one. Have you heard of Reverso?
I haven't. No.
Okay, it's like a um dictionary translator type thing, but they do a really good job of, if you type in something like holai, like it'll bring up like 20 examples of holai being used in a sentence. So
Mm.
it's really helpful for a word that you haven't seen before. You're like, okay, I know the strict definition is like, to play or something, but like how is it actually used in context? So it's really good for context studying. So I'll have that, and then like just another like Google Translate popped up, and go between the two and kind of see the difference with some words. That I find that super helpful.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Oh yeah, it has context. Very nice. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
like an online dictionary, but this is an online dictionary that I haven't seen. So that's very nice. Okay, reverso.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Reverso.
Okay. So is there anything that you could say, because this is always really helpful for people that have spent a lot of time on the course, like, is there anything that you could say that we could do to improve your experience in any way?
Um, let's see. I I thought about this a little bit. I'd like to have some constructive feedback, and but there's not much that I can say could be better as far as I've gotten, to level 17. And once again, like I haven't been super challenged yet, so maybe in later levels I can get back to you
Mhm.
when I'm a little bit more challenged. I think it'll be more applicable. But yeah, so far, like um, I guess maybe if I were to put myself in the shoes of someone who was completely new with Chinese and unfamiliar with the method, I could see how the first few videos were could be a little like overwhelming and confusing.
Mm.
And there were a couple times like we would learn, I think it was duh, and then like the definition that we were given was D. Um, I think it was like one of the first ones. Do you know what I'm referring
Oh,
to?
the pronunciation you mean? Like D-I-D for duh.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
yeah, yeah.
So
Like,
you'd
like
learn it as
I was
D,
familiar.
but
I
then
was
you would
familiar.
see it in context as duh, and you'd be like, what? What's going on there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I saw some people comment like, why I thought you said it's duh, but why is it D now? And being familiar with the character, I was like, okay, just wait. It'll all be okay. But
Mm.
that's maybe the only thing so far. Nothing serious.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, like we're always focusing a lot of attention on the beginning of the course just to ease people into it, because because for people that haven't
Mm-hmm.
read like books like you've read and stuff, we're already asking a lot for them to start imagining, Al Murray and their, whoever it is in their Bill Murray in their
Yeah,
kitchen
yeah,
and stuff like that, and we're like,
yeah.
so it's a good idea to make that process as smooth as possible. We're constantly working on that, but that is, I think since we've actually already tweaked that to make it more clear, but I'll double
Okay,
check. But yeah,
okay, cool.
thanks for that. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess as a sort of last question for now is, would you recommend Mandarin Blueprint and why?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just from my personal experience, being kind of stuck in that limbo state for 2 years or so, and I was very, very interested and motivated to learn Chinese, but couldn't get past this hump. It worked for me. Like I've been putting in at least 2 hours a day now for the past 3 months. It's like more fun. I can see the progress. There's the community aspect. Yeah, so I would highly recommend it for anyone who is serious. I I'm curious like how people respond to it when they're. I guess I have a question for you.
Hmm.
Like how many people that are part of the course are like brand new to Chinese, or how many people are kind of like me where they studied a little bit but we're looking for something more?
That's a great question. Well, we don't know exactly, of course, but I would say the vast majority, because we're a relatively new, relatively small company, so we're just not on Google. Like you search for learn Chinese, we're like, I think we've managed to get to like page 10 or something, but
Oh, geez.
it just doesn't.
Damn.
There's so much competition out there, and people like companies like mammoth companies like Chinese Pod and um, Rosetta Stone, and people that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years, and so when people go, I want to learn Chinese, if they think that for the first time, Mandarin Blueprint doesn't really come up. It's not really on their radar, and it doesn't come up in the search results right now. Maybe in 5 years' time,
Mm-hmm.
different story. But so I think that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the reason why we don't have many brand new people, except for like through word of mouth and things like that. So we do get a few there. But yeah, the vast majority are people that have tried Rosetta Stone and been like, this doesn't work. This is terrible. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's not say terrible. This is not good. This is not good. There you go.
It's not efficient.
It's not
Like if you
efficient.
had if you had 10, yeah, if you had 10 years you could maybe do it, but
Yeah.
we have an hour a day.
Yeah, so we get a lot of people that have just, like yourself, who have just been in it for a month, 6 months, a year, and they've been searching a bunch of stuff, and they're really trying to learn, which is great, because we get a lot of people that are really into it, really, and will like
Yeah.
serious learners, and that's, I think, the way you describe it is how I would describe it too. Mandarin Blueprint is the best thing out there if you're serious about learning Chinese, if you're willing to put in the time and the energy. I think, yeah, I hope that you
Yeah.
don't get any more bang for your buck anywhere else. So
Mm-hmm.
I really
I would
appreciate.
second that for sure.
Thanks, man. And I really appreciate you saying that. And your time today. Really appreciate it. And we do like to follow up. I'd love to have another meeting with you once you've made it at least through the foundation course, maybe even the intermediate as well, depending on how fast you
Mm-hmm.
go. No pressure. and see how, just
Sure.
have a quick update, and see how you're doing.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And
Yeah, I
just
would love
generally,
to.
stay in touch, Chad. Just get in touch as usual. Email us or message me if you need like any advice or anything, not just with the course, anything to do with Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Be happy to
Absolutely, will
help.
do. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah. Speak to you soon. 再见.
Yeah, later. 再见.